From the snowy Green Mountains of central Vermont, I'm Deborah Goodwin, and this is the Friday News Dump. It's Friday, December 13th, 2013, with your hosts, Greg Crawford and Francis Goodwin.
A student opened fire at a Colorado high school today before apparently taking his own life. Authorities say at least 2 other students were injured in the violence. One of the victims is in serious condition with gunshot wounds at a local hospital. The second victim suffered minor injuries and may not have been hit by the bullets. The incident comes a day before the first anniversary of the tragedy in Newtown, Connecticut, in which gunmen killed 20 children and 6 adults at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut.
U.S. stocks were little changed in trading today, capping the worst week for the Standard & Poor's 500 index since August. Losses in oil producers and phone shares offset gains after the U.S. House of Representatives passed a budget deal. The S&P 500 fell 1.7% this week, the biggest decline since August.
Authorities say they have foiled a suicide bombing plot to blow up the Mid-Continent Airport in Wichita, Kansas. They arrested a man who proclaimed himself Muslim and talked of committing what authorities described as a violent jihad on behalf of Al-Qaeda. Terry Lowen, a 58-year-old aviation technician from Wichita, was taken into custody early this morning as he tried to enter the airport tarmac with a vehicle loaded with what authorities said he believed were explosives. They said he planned to trigger the explosives and die in the explosion.
In Syria Saturday, the Islamic Front took over Bab al-Hawa bases from the Free Syrian Army. Salim Idris, top commander of the Free Syrian Army, fled Syria Wednesday. Islamist fighters took over his headquarters and key warehouses.
France on Saturday expanded its role in the conflict in the Central African Republic. 2 French soldiers died on Tuesday in overnight fighting with the Central African Republic capital of Bangui.
Car bombs killed at least 30 people Sunday in Iraq. Attacks around Iraq Monday killed at least 18 people, including a car bombing at a cafe in the town of Bariz that killed 12 people.
3 journalists have been killed and 1 wounded in the Philippines within the span of 2 weeks, raising concerns regarding the security situation in that country.
87-year-old American comedian Don Rickles is recovering after treatment Saturday for a leg infection of necrotizing, is it
Fasciitis.
Fasciitis.
Oh, that's flesh-eating disease.
Yeah.
I met Don Rickles once.
Really?
Yeah, at a restaurant, and he was.
Did he call you a hockey puck?
87 years old then.
I was going to say. Right.
He was really crusty. Is all I gotta say. He's a really crusty type of guy.
I'll betcha. British singer Susan Boyle revealed on Monday that she has Asperger's syndrome.
Huh.
The life of Nelson Mandela was celebrated Tuesday in a memorial service in Johannesburg. Barack Obama and Raul Castro exchanged handshakes at the memorial service, despite a U.S. embargo against Cuba. Also at the memorial service, Dilma Rousseff and Barack Obama greeted each other despite revelations of spying on the Brazilian leader in the recent global surveillance disclosures. Mandela's body was laid in state yesterday in the federal government district of Pretoria. The body is to be flown to Kunu in the Eastern Cape, where he is to be laid to rest.
Time magazine Wednesday named Pope Francis its Person of the Year.
You should speak up, Deborah. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that whole bit about Obama shaking Raul Castro's hand is like the biggest non-story I have ever heard, I think. Well, one of the biggest ones. There's
well, and
so
you heard
many
it here.
Well, the thing is, the concept of common human courtesy in a situation like that is utterly beyond the people that were criticizing him for it.
He was standing in a receiving line. You know,
What's he gonna
Obama and de Klerk and all these, people were standing in a receiving line, and here comes Raul Castro. He's got like dignitaries to the right, dignitaries to the left. Is he supposed to not shake his hand?
Well,
really?
according to the supporters of Batista that infest southern Florida, and one of whom is Mr. Senator Cruz's father, Cruz actually walked out when Raul Castro stood up to give his little tidbit of eulogy. That's how much class that little turd's got.
Well, It's a big non-story. And the bit about the selfies, too.
Yeah, I know.
Obama selfies.
Well, it's just ridiculous.
It's just
So,
like,
anyway.
let's see what else we can find to distract us from the real news.
U.S. Supreme Court Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, one of my favorites, Saturday turned down a stay to block the December 9th American Airlines U.S. Airways merger.
American Airlines Group was formed on Monday from the merger of AMR Corporation and U.S. Airways Group and began trading on the NASDAQ exchange. Mary Barra, well, we don't have a name in front of that one,
No,
so
I
it's
think
a
I
toss-up.
didn't-
Here we go.
Well, let me do the ones that don't have my name.
Okay.
Because I think they're, okay. Mary Barra of General Motors Tuesday became the first female CEO of an automotive company.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
She's pretty, too.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, she worked her way up from in
Yeah,
the
she
company,
was
too.
she was
like an
she was used to
administrative
clean
assistant
toilets or something like that,
You know,
and,
she was,
and
I don't
now
know if
she's
she was on the
running
line,
the whole
but,
show.
You know, she.
But she knows the automotive business
Yeah, I
inside
think
and out,
this is
and instead of
great.
taking these guys that were, you know, hedge fund managers or something like that, and having them run the company into the bloody ground like the last one did, they're actually going to have somebody that knows something about automotive
Maybe.
industry.
Let's hope so. I mean,
We'll
you
see,
know,
we'll see. But
I'm just all for
you know,
women
just-
getting into. These
Oh yeah, I
positions
am
of-
definitely for that. But the corporatists just get their, you know, nasty little fingers into everything and screw up whatever they touch. So.
Well, she's got to be part of that game. If
Oh, to a
she's,
degree,
you know,
one degree or
you know,
another.
has that.
But I mean, why would she slit the goose's, you know, the golden goose's throat by screwing that up? You know, she's going to be whatever. Here we go.
Well,
General
Mary.
Motors said on Wednesday that it will be closing its Australian Holden manufacturing subsidiary by the end of 2017.
Sources indicated Wednesday that Stanley Fischer, former head of the Central Bank of Israel, is the frontrunner to become the new vice chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve
Oh no! Really?
as Janet Yellen ascends to the chair. Sure.
We shall see.
Wait, is he an Israeli citizen? You say
Oh, well, I won't say all. Many of the neocons are dual citizens.
that-
You
yeah.
know that. But
So he's one of these neocons, though. That,
Yeah,
I
or one of the.
don't know. I'm not sure.
Very likely, very likely.
but he was head of the Israeli Central Bank, and now he's going to be vice chair of the U.S. Central Bank.
That's the Federal Reserve, which
Federal
is
Reserve.
basically the essence, in
Excuse
essence, the
Why does it
central
all?
bank.
It just seems.
It's
The
in,
fix
it
is
is in.
in. It seems, at least.
You're just coming to that realization now.
No. I'm constantly disappointed
boy.
though, to have
Well,
my worst
you-
fears reconfirmed.
Oh, it's worse. It's worse.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
it's 1,000
worse.
times worse than you ever imagined, actually.
Yeah, it's-
But I don't want to depress you right now.
Yeah. Happy.
Yes, happy.
Unicorn.
So, 4 former Icelandic bank bosses were jailed yesterday for concealing illegal activities within the bank.
Can you imagine they jailed their bankers?
Now, I was just going to
Whoa.
say, Iceland knows how to take care of their
Oh,
bankers.
and Bork,
Okay?
they got Bork there? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be nice in Iceland. They named it Iceland so no one would come.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
They could keep it to themselves.
I'd like to visit
And
anyway.
dang, excuse me, if they
can
haven't
say
been
whatever
treating
you
their
want.
their banking
Yeah.
thing, and
Yeah,
their
the way it
bankers
should have been
way
done.
It should have been done
Yeah.
all along.
Yeah. Yeah. When the bankers said you got to bail us out, they said no, we don't.
Look up fat chance in your fucking waggles,
Yeah.
buckwheat. Yeah,
Right.
Get out of here.
Right. At least 7 people were killed Monday in a train accident in Indonesia.
20 people died last week in a Madagascar village, following a deadly outbreak of the bubonic plague.
Whoa!
Medical experts confirmed Wednesday that tests identified plague as the cause of the death. The disease is transmitted to humans, usually via rat fleas. I thought they had that under control. But
No, it turns out, Madagascar is the worst country in the world for this. There's 500 cases of it a year.
damn.
They catch a lot of them. Most people don't die, and I wasn't clear, but I think
Here
these
comes
people
somebody.
were prisoners. Okay. On that note, we're going to take a break. We're going to go to Greg Crawford's weekly rant, and then we'll come right back. See you in a few.
Hi, I'm Greg Crawford with the Friday News Dump, brought to you by World News Trust. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is slowly gaining exposure. Exposure its proponents would rather it was not receiving. And people are, in turn, gaining some insight into just what a staggering betrayal this utterly malignant trade deal really is. If you're wondering why your representatives and senators have been so quiet about something so monstrously evil, it's because President Obama has forbidden those few members of Congress that know anything to discuss anything with the press or their constituencies concerning the super-secret negotiations surrounding the TPP. Now, as disgusted as we have every right to be with Obama's performance as president, just imagine what it would be like if the Republicans had won the White House. Anyone expressing even slightly liberal views would probably be wearing orange as the new black, while we're crammed into the old World War II Japanese internment camps that Bush the Lesser spent millions to renovate in his second term. Now, those renovations are irrefutable fact. The reasons for the renovations may be vague, but it would not be too over the top to suspect that they were getting spruced up to fulfill Ann Coulter's fevered dream that anyone who fails to toe the conservative line would be rounded up and thrown into concentration camps. And yes, she actually did publicly express a desire to do just exactly that. It's happening now anyway, but just not in quite a brazen, in-your-face manner. The United States incarcerates more of its citizens than any other country on earth, and that is not per capita. That is purely the number of people in jail. The contractual obligations in terms of filling cells that states owe to private prison companies like CCA is a diseased phenomenon that is most certainly contributing to the explosion in the prison populations. States that fail to send them enough prisoners have to pay for those beds anyway, plus a penalty. See what happens when you let the acolytes of Ayn Rand have their way? Now, like the tentacles of a tumor, the corporate usurpation of government functions is something that should scare the living shit out of everyone capable of rational thought. That, of course, excludes Fox News viewers, but their opinions might change once they're the ones getting deloused with a fire hose and then assigned a big, horny cellmate who's not picky about gender. The carcinoma that is corporatism is mounting a full-court press to crush the last remnant of democracy in this country. And the brain-dead morons that screech the loudest about freedom and liberty are helping them do it. The treasonous corporate coup d'etat of our representative democracy is largely fait accompli, if you'll forgive all the French phrases. The Trans-Pacific Partnership just codifies the rules that the corporatists wrote with zero input from the people that will be directly affected by them. Now, the North American Free Trade Association, or NAFTA, that Slick Willie Clinton shoved down our throats, already allows corporations to sue sovereign nations if they pass laws that might result in reduced profits for the corporations doing the suing. And both Canada and Mexico have already lost suits brought against them for that very reason. But the TPP will finally do away with the annoying inconvenience of having to file suit in any given country's courts. Such litigation will be adjudicated by corporate lawyers in secret courts. And here's the cherry on top. There is no provision for appeal of these decisions. Franz Kafka isn't getting much rest lately, what with all the rolling over in his grave he's been doing. And as much as I detest them, Republicans cannot be the only ones blamed for this travesty, though this mutant monstrosity was initiated during the Bush regime. Our supposed Democratic president is pushing for fast-track authority to approve the TPP without congressional review or amendments. And a frightening number of Democrats in both houses are just fine with that. Goldman Sachs certainly got their money's worth when they bought Mr. Obama. Damn, Ralph Nader's observation that there isn't a dime's worth of difference between the two parties is beginning to look more and more credible all the time. Now, WikiLeaks has acquired and released one of the 29 chapters believed to be part of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It deals with the corporatist plan to gain a permanent stranglehold, read censorship, on Internet content and data transmission. Envision the ill-fated Stop Online Piracy Act, or SOPA, from a couple of years ago as Marvel Comics' Bruce Banner. And then imagine the Trans-Pacific Partnership as the Hulk. Get the picture? Calling this abortion soap on steroids just doesn't do it justice. Now, there is no hyperbole or exaggeration involved when I tell you that the people behind the Trans-Pacific Partnership are some of the most evil psychopaths humanity has ever spawned. Nor am I crying wolf when I say that their plans for world domination make the worst comic book villains look like choir boys. We have to fight this as though our lives depend on it, because our lives literally do depend on it. These guys are real, and if we don't fight them, they won't just eat our lunch. They'll eat us for lunch.
And we're back. The total death toll from Typhoon Haiyan passed 6,000 today, officially making it the deadliest recording typhoon in the Philippines.
The World Trade Organization meeting in Bali, Indonesia concluded on Saturday with agreement to simplify trade deals and make it easier for poorer states to sell their goods as part of the Bali package.
The Philippines and Bangsamoro signed a power-sharing agreement Monday, paving the way for a peace process.
The latest document leaked by Edward Snowden shows that the NSA spy agency played World of Warcraft, Second Life, and games on the Xbox 360 in order to spy on gamers.
Oh yeah, those gamers,
Also,
they're like really like subversive terrorists.
right.
They think they are.
Yeah, I think of our daughter's boyfriend. Like he's a real terrorist.
Hey, don't give him any
gamer.
ideas. Come on now.
He likes to play StarCraft or whatever.
Okay, that's too weird for me.
Stupid.
Also, internal presentation slides leaked by Snowden show that the NSA is secretly piggybacking on the tools that enable internet advertisers to track consumers. The slides show that the NSA is tracking Google cookies to determine targets for hacking.
The Philippines Tuesday banned its workers from Yemen after the deaths of 7 Filipinos there.
A breakthrough agreement to end the standoff over Iran's nuclear program apparently appeared to face its first major difficulty today. Russia warns that expanding a U.S. sanctions blacklist could seriously complicate its implementation. Russia, along with the United States, is among the 6 world powers that negotiated a November 24th interim accord with Tehran. Russia echoed Iranian criticism that the sanctions blacklist violates the spirit of the deal and could, in its words, block things. The United States yesterday blacklisted additional companies and people under existing sanctions intended to prevent Iran from obtaining the capability to make nuclear weapons. Iran denies any such claims.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said today that Israelis and Palestinians remain committed to peace talks and are on course to wrap up a full deal by April. Speaking at the end of his second visit to the region in just a week, Kerry said the two sides are discussing a framework for a final status accord to resolve the core issues at the heart of the decades-old conflict.
Riots broke out on Sunday in Singapore after a fatal accident in Little India. It is the second riot in post-independence Singapore and the first in more than 40 years.
Jean-Claude Masse, the founder of polyimplant Prothese, was sentenced in a French court Tuesday to 4 years in prison for fraud for selling faulty breast implants.
No, I heard this.
I know,
one.
it sounds terrible.
What's a faulty?
Well, they would break
explode?
and leak, or
Yeah,
and I think some of them would harden as well, if I remember correctly.
They used
But-
industrial grade silicone instead of like medical grade.
Oh, ew.
Yeah, bad stuff.
Oh, gross. Well, you put those things in you, I guess you gotta wonder, but
No one's, that was,
That's-
he was a crook.
Oh, it's
ew.
and then there's the
You were
question
talking about
of
buying
why
some
do you want to
sandbags,
do
honey?
that anyway? Why do you want
I
to do that
know.
anyway? I mean, unless you're. Oh, we probably shouldn't go there.
No.
Looters in Argentina killed at least 5 people on Tuesday as mobs took advantage of strikes by police demanding pay raises.
The Supreme Court of India Wednesday upheld the primacy of a section of the Indian Penal Code that bans homosexual activities. The gay activists in India did not like that.
Yeah.
A revenge porn website was shut down in San Diego on Wednesday after the owner, Kevin Christopher Bollert, was accused of extorting money from one of its victims.
I just heard about this revenge porn stuff.
Really?
Yesterday from my daughter. So it's when you break up with somebody and then your ex puts up naked pictures of you on the internet.
Well, that's how it started.
And supposedly people have lost their jobs. Because their exes have put stuff up
more
on
than a few
Facebook
suicides as a result
or
of it
Twitter
too.
Or whatever.
But it's not just old boyfriends. Some of these guys actively go after women through Facebook pages, and they are really good at finagling their way into more information about these people, and they do it just so they can screw with somebody's life. It doesn't even have to be somebody they know.
There's extortion.
They don't even care.
Like
they don't even care if it's anyone that they know. That doesn't matter if there was a boyfriend involved in any way, shape, or form at any point.
Yeah.
They will find these little pictures because they scour the internet for a girl who she got a little bit tipsy one night and just went and that's all they need. And sometimes they'll do it by putting someone's face on another person's body
that's really
and
bad.
then starting this whole thing. But they do it solely for the malicious intent of screwing with somebody's life because they're misogynists. They're scum beneath contempt.
And they probably extort money from them too.
Oh, if they can get away with it.
This
probably.
is like, as I tell the girls, be careful what you put on the internet because you never know what could be done with it.
That's for bloody sure.
North Korea Saturday released 85-year-old American retiree Merle Newman after 42 days in captivity. The United States once again asked the DPRK to pardon and release Kenneth Bae. South Korea announced Sunday that it will expand its air defense zone in response to a recent move by the People's Republic of China.
Dennis the Worm Rodman had better watch his back while he's teaching all those hungry North Koreans to shoot hoops. That nation's supreme nutjob, the Putz of Pyongyang, the malicious midget Kim Jong-un, reportedly had his uncle, Jang Song-taek, executed. Jang was instrumental in securing Kim's hold on power when he first inherited the mantle of supreme nutjob following the death of his father, Kim Jong-il, and was regarded as the second in command of that sorry excuse for a country. Seems Jang made the mistake of having a little too much fun while he was out of that hellhole to receive medical treatment. A few months ago, more than 80 people were machine-gunned for watching South Korean TV shows, and the diminutive psychopath has threatened nuclear attacks on, just about everybody. Word on the street is that China, North Korea's very large neighbor and only friend on the planet, is getting more than a little bit impatient with Kim's deranged antics. Maybe someone else had better watch his pudgy little back, too.
Australia's High Court ruled yesterday that same-sex marriages held in the country are invalid.
A week after they said that they were okay. So there's all these people that got married in a week, and then suddenly they're unmarried.
I can't get pregnant.
But it's I mean, come on, this is we should have evolved beyond this kind of nonsense by now, one would think.
The United Nations said yesterday that the legalization of marijuana in Uruguay is a violation of international law.
I mean, who cares, really? Come on, you guys. Get a fucking life.
Why don't you take this one?
Bangladesh yesterday hanged Abdul Qadir Mullah, a leader of the Bangladesh Jamaat al-Islami, for committing atrocities in the Bangladesh Liberation War in 1971.
They hanged him just yesterday for something he did in 1971.
Go figure.
Yeah, 42 years ago.
Was he in jail all that time? Or they just picked him up off the street and said, "Surprise! We found out what you did in 1970." Because I better be worried. 1971 was a bad year. Just kidding.
How many revolts did you start?
No, I didn't start any.
U.S. authorities shut down 52 bus line companies nationwide yesterday in a crackdown on unsafe operations.
Local government elections were held on Saturday in Balochistan, Pakistan.
The Indian National Congress Sunday lost the Delhi and Rajasthan Assembly elections, and the Bharatiya Janata Party remained the Madhya Pradesh and Oh, God, you were supposed to do this one.
I was? Okay, well, let's
Go
take it
ahead.
from the
Start
top.
with the Indian National
Okay.
Congress.
The 2013 elections in India. The Indian National Congress Sunday lost the Delhi and Rajasthan assembly elections, and the Bharatiya Janata Party retained the Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh legislative assemblies while gaining a majority in the Rajasthan assembly.
Very well spoken. That was great.
The Thailand political
I sprained my tongue.
The Thailand political opposition, I think the organization is called the Thailand Opposition, vowed Sunday to resign en masse after weeks of protest. Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra announced Monday that she plans to hold elections. Thousands of protesters flooded the streets of Bangkok Tuesday. The opposition Democratic Party resigned en masse, as I guess they were threatening to do. The former Prime Minister, oh, come on, how do I say that?
Abhisit Vejjajiva.
Well, this is not
Sorry, you
fun.
say it with such certainty.
I know, but probably like, yeah. No, then this is not funny. He was charged with murder yesterday for his role
Oh, that's bad. He was charged with murder, but
in political protests a few years ago.
During the third Sunday of mass protests last weekend, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians demonstrated in the streets of Kiev, seeking the resignation of the government for refusing to deal on closer ties with the European Union. Anti-government protesters toppled the last surviving statue of communist leader Vladimir Lenin on Sunday in central Kiev. Former Ukrainian Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko sent a letter of support to Ukrainian protesters on Monday. Police in Kiev abandoned their posts on Wednesday after a sweep of the protesters ended in violence. Sanctions are being considered by the United States against Ukraine after the violent dispersal of the protests.
Gustavo Petro, mayor of Bogota, Colombia, was removed from office Monday and banned from retaking it for 15 years due to failing a city cleanup policy that he promoted.
what's the city cleanup policy that you failed?
Well, I think I'm not certain. I should be able to tell you. He didn't do what he said he was going to do.
I see.
So there. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced on Monday the immediate shutdown of RIA Novosti, Voice of Russia, and the state fund of television and the radio programs will immediately be shut down. Newly created Rossiya Segodnya, Russia Today, will take RIA Novosti's place as the government news agency.
Uruguay Tuesday became the first country on Earth to legalize the growth, sale, and use of marijuana. Did we mention earlier?
Well, there
in
was
the
a
show?
mention of that, and it was said that the UN said, no, that's against international law.
Yeah.
But, just take a minute and reflect here, ladies and gentlemen. There was a time when the United States government was paying every farmer in the Midwest to grow as much hemp as they possibly could.
Yeah, back in World War II.
Bingo, they were making rope with this stuff.
Right.
And it's still out there. I tried to harvest some myself back in the 60s, and it was to no avail. You don't want to smoke rope, it doesn't work. But the point is that come on, alcohol is 100 times worse as far as its destructive capabilities, both physically and socially, than a little bit of booze. So get over it.
I don't know. We seem to be moving that way in this country.
Yeah, but
slowly.
it's fits and starts. One step forward, two steps back.
Russian President Vladimir Putin announced a policy mandate that increases military focus in the Arctic.
The sun may be 93 million miles away, but when it gets its hot pants in a bunch, Earth had better duck. Or so say a great many scientists who are usually right about this kind of stuff. As we mentioned in a recent broadcast, old Saul is in the midst of one of its 11-year hissy fits. So far, we've been fortunate. A year and a half ago, there was a solar flare for the record books. But it was not aimed at Earth this time. If it had happened a week before, well, we might still be sending smoke signals instead of emails. It could very well have destroyed, not just damaged, our communication satellites and our electric and electronic infrastructure. Way not good. But in typical fashion, the pod people that infest Washington, D.C. said, "So, how many people were killed?" "Oh, that's not enough to be statistically significant in my re-election prospects. Call us when you've got something." Well, when we've got something, it'll be too late. My God, it's like talking to a pile of bricks. Unfortunately, these are bricks with dominion over all our lives. Last year's event was very probably more powerful than the 1859 Carrington event that literally made telegraph machines burst into flames, and people could read a book by the light of the aurora borealis in Georgia.
Wow.
Previous solar events had caused massive blackouts and turned satellites into useless junk. Scientists have amassed volumes of data to prove their case, but the House committee that deals with all that there scientifical type hooey is run by mental defectives that think the Earth is only 6,000 years old and that cavemen rode dinosaurs. So the science boys are definitely spitting into the wind trying to explain anything to them. Might be a good time to brush up on your Morse code.
Or smoke signals.
Well, you can do Morse code with smoke signals, actually.
I guess you could.
Yeah, I did that in the Boy Scouts.
I think what the military's done is they've got fiber optic cables buried that won't be impacted by that. That's the idea. Researchers at the New York University School of Medicine are describing a link between decreased levels of gut microbe diversity and increased colorectal cancer rates. A possible cause of the link may be that such people's digestive tracts have lower levels of bacteria that ferment dietary fiber into the anti-inflammatory fatty acid. Is it butyrate? Butyrate. However, the causative link remains uncertain since there could be other influencing factors such as genetics, obesity, or the presence of inflammatory types of microbes.
Gut bacteria is the hot new scientific research thing. They're saying if you have a certain kind of gut bacteria, you have a tendency to put on weight.
Well, there's
gut
also
bacteria, you live longer.
The influence of some of the bizarre additives that are in our food now are having an adverse effect on all of those bacteria, and those bacteria, instead of eating the food that we consume, are eating us.
Right. But it's like it seems to. There's been a lot of gut bacteria stories that I've seen go by.
Mm-hmm. It's the new rage, gut bacteria.
Mm-hmm. Gut bacteria is.
Oh, that's a nice dinner conversation. So, why is the sky blue? Sooner or later, every kid asks that question, and even though they've had years to prepare an answer, every parent replies, well. Now such questions will be asked and hopefully answered by the dedicated researchers at Stony Brook University's Alda Center for the Communicating Science and on eastern Long Island. Actor Alan Alda, star of the 1970s sitcom MASH and a native New Yorker, has been a visiting professor at the university from time to time. In 2011, Alda proposed a contest to challenge scientists to come up with a simple but scientifically concise explanation for the question, what is a flame? In 2012, it was, what is time? This year, Alda wants them to explain in terms an 11-year-old can understand, what is color? This question was chosen from more than 800 suggestions sent in by children. Any scientists choosing to pick up this daunting gauntlet have until March 1st, 2014 to submit their answers. Responses will be judged by 20,000 11-year-olds from around the world. No, seriously, that's how many logged onto the site last year. Anyway, the victorious nerds, there are categories for both written and video responses, will get an all-expense-paid trip to the Big Apple to receive their Golden Pocket Protector awards, bask in the accolades of the World Science Festival, and to chat with Mr. Alda. Now, back in the early 60s, when the legendary Bill Cosby was doing stand-up, he released a comedy album entitled, Why Is There Air? To the best of my knowledge, that question's still awaiting a simple answer. Something to consider for next year, Al. I'm just saying.
One of the best meteor showers of the year is set to put on a performance tonight. The Geminid meteor shower, named for the constellation Gemini, is peaking late tonight into tomorrow morning, potentially treating stargazers in light-free areas to about 90 to 120 meteors per hour.
Oh, cool. What time?
Yeah. Well, observers can expect to get the best views of the shower, weather permitting, at around 4 a.m. local time in the wee hours after
Eastern Standard Time?
Well, I wasn't totally clear on this, but basically, I think about 4 a.m.
Our time.
the moon goes down. Is it Eastern Time?
Probably.
So the time between moonset and dawn would be
Sweet.
just because it's the darkest.
Yeah,
But
'cause it's a gibbous moon tonight, so it's pretty bright.
yeah, but if you
But,
if you look up, when
Oh,
they
I
were going,
love
you
that
can
stuff.
see them. Yeah.
And we can see them great here in the Green Mountains.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, there isn't that much ambient light.
Yep.
You know,
Great
so-
place.
So 4 a.m. Wake me up, honey, okay?
Okay, sure, dear. And on that note, thank you for joining us. This has been the Friday News Dump for December 13th, 2013. Behind the camera, we have the lovely Deborah Goodwin. My partner, Greg Crawford. I'm Francis Goodwin. See you next week.